work at the Humboldt IPA, Independent Practice Association, and we're part of this new school-based wellness program, and that is in Eureka. And we have 4 wellness centers that we run at various different schools. And so right now we're currently at Pacific Union Elementary, Sunnybray Middle School, Peninsula Union in Eureka, it's in Samoa, and then Miranda and South Fork High. So that's about 45 to an hour minutes away. And within those, so those are drop-in centers that we offer like hygiene products. We offer social and emotional regulation if they need a break from class. We offer like food, clothing, pretty much anything you can think of. We try to offer it. And in addition to that, we also have empowerment groups. And this is originally, I think,
That's how I found you guys, was through that empowerment group.
Yeah, this is originally what we spoke about. And so we do have what is a boys group, which we call the Young Men's Council. And all of our empowerment groups are, we use evidence-based curriculum, that is facilitated by the One Circle Foundation. So basically in these empowerment groups, it's a strengths-based group. And we basically have conversations and engage in activities with the youth that helps them build community with each other. And we talk about like more difficult topics that is real in their life, but they don't necessarily get to talk to about with their teacher in the classroom.
In terms of sensitive subjects, growing bodies, how to make friends, things like that.
Yeah, so all of that stuff, like bullying, anything you can think of that like a normal middle school or high school student goes through, like we try to touch on it. So like body.
I'm sorry, could you pull that just out just a little bit? If you want to just pull it over towards you a little.
Oh, it moves like that.
Yeah,
okay,
you're
cool.
Good.
All right. Yeah, so we talk about all sorts of topics, anything that a high schooler or a middle schooler goes through, we try to hit on. And so like peer pressure, body image, substance use, anything, like whatever we try to fill out their needs. So if in the beginning of the year, we say, okay, these are a list of topics that we talk about. What do you guys want to know about? But I am jumping around a little bit. So let me go back to that. We have our boys group, which is the Young Men's Council. And then we have a girls group. And then we have a pride group that we facilitate. And then we also have a BSU, which is a Black Student Union / multicultural group that we offer for students to go to. And then we also have a La Mariposa group, which is for Latina identifying students. And the cool thing about some of those groups is obviously they're meant to uplift marginalized, student populations and help them build community, but also talk about amongst their peers specific issues that community faces. It's a really cool side project within our program that we are very passionate about.
And this is all under the umbrella of the Humboldt Independent Practice Association.
Yes.
And what is that? It's a group of doctors, practitioners?
So it's kind of funny. There's multiple sections of the Humboldt IPA. Overall, it's related to health and wellness, of course, and the IPA, it mainly deals with like insurance claims and things like that. But also there's also the Priority Care Center, which is a clinic. So people can go there for their health needs. And then there's also the school-based health center at CR, which has like a nurse practitioner and that serves the CR students. And then we also have our school-based wellness program, which serves ideally K through 12 age students. But right now we're just at McKinleyville High for our boys empowerment group. And then for high schools, we also are at South Fork High.
So pretty diversified around the idea of we're trying to help people.
Yeah.
Anything that falls under that umbrella.
Exactly.
And so how did the empowerment group start?
That's a great question. And so basically, the program coordinator's name is Vanessa Verdiak, and she basically saw a need in the community, because she used to work in the jails, and she would hear stories of like the people, the adults that they would work with about like just the experiences that they've had and how their children are affected by it. And it kind of started out with that idea of like, oh man, like, um, I wish that, you know, because they would tell her all the time, they would say, "I wish I knew this when I was younger. Then I wouldn't be here in this situation." And so she kept hearing that same kind of idea. So when we started to transition into the schools, she thought, "Okay, well, this is a great opportunity to try to build those safety net or those barriers for the kids at an early age." And yeah, if I could go into a little more history, I guess, about the school-based wellness program if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So yeah, basically in 2017, it originated out of McKinleyville Middle School. It was just like a school nurse and the program director, and it was mainly just for health, like physical health. And then, as the years moved on, we kind of saw a shift within the needs of the community. So that's how it kind of shifted from like more physical health to like social and emotional needs, and trying to cater to those. um, and so, yeah, we changed it from a health center to a wellness center because, I mean, obviously, health and wellness it's a huge umbrella term and it can
They kind of
encompass.
go hand in hand.
Exactly, yeah.
And so how did you get on board with this? You're a social worker, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I got my MSW at Humboldt State, and then I got my school social work credential through HSU as well over the summer. It's called a PPS, and originally I came into contact with the Humboldt IPA because I was an intern. So that was like about 2.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. I just needed an internship, and I just loved it so much, and apparently they liked me. So, and we needed to expand and grow, so they offered me a part-time position, and then it just grew from there.
And your interest in that stems from just wanting to help kids? Where does that
That
passion come from?
that as well. I mean, not to get too personal, but yeah, I did grow up with some sort of trauma, and I'm local, so I'm from Humboldt County, grew up here, so I kind of can see some of the cultural issues that may arise over time. And yeah, I feel like I just have a prevention based philosophy when it comes to health, and I just liked everything that they were doing. They seemed back like 2 years ago, they were really kind of like coming up with some really cool ideas, and I just wanted to be a part of that.
And so how are these is it like a structured curriculum in a sense? You mentioned the one circle group. Is that the
Yeah,
kind of parent company of what we're going to teach these kids?
pretty much. So I mean, there's probably hundreds of curriculum out there, but they offer a specific training for the people who are going to be facilitating these groups. So I really love that they not only provide a curriculum for us to follow, but they also offer um, like 3 day long training all day, where we practice running groups. We learn about kind of the structure of a group. And yeah, so what was your original question? Sorry.
If that one circle group, I suppose more so how it's structured,
Yeah,
because it
so
seems like you could really go anywhere with that. How do if you asked me as a kid, what would you want to teach your younger self? Or if you ask me now, what would I want to teach myself as a kid? It would be radically different for me than I'm sure it would be for you.
mhm.
So I guess where does that underlying structure come through?
It's hard to hit on every single aspect, right? So it's kind of like they're voluntary groups, so they can choose to take in whatever they want, from it. Like, um, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I hope that answers the question.
Well, is there a structure? So you go and you take these courses
Yeah.
through the one circle group of how to run these groups. Is it free form? Do you have a lot of freedom in how you can interpret what you're going to tell the kids, or is it more
Sort of.
structured?
Yeah. I mean, like, they obviously want us to follow some fidelity to it, but for the most part, they give us kind of a script to say, and they have like a structure of like, So basically, there is a structure. It's like you do a check in when they first get into the group. We sit in a circle. We go through around the circle to do just like a quick check in, whether that's like talking about the high of your week or like the low of the week, however you're feeling that day. Like if you're a weather, what would you be? Like something like that, kind of silly. But and they can always pass if they don't want to. And then you jump into like a warm up icebreaker type activity, and there's a whole bunch of descripting warm-ups that they give you, and you just have to read them and then kind of like think about, oh, okay, I can see how this would work, and you can modify it however you want. And then you jump into like the main activity for the week. And that could be, writing um on one side of the piece of a paper, like all the things that you love about yourself, or and then flip it, and maybe there's all the things that you wish other people knew that you were struggling with. And then we like throw it in the middle, someone else grabs it, like crumple it up, throw it in the middle, someone else grabs it, and then they read it. No one, it's anonymous, no one knows who it comes from. Um, and then we kind of have a discussion about the differences or the similarities that they all shared. It's so that's kind of like a short, quick, and fast example of one of the larger activities that we do. And each week has a theme, right? So whether it's like the similarities or differences, or whether it's like consent for that week, or whether it's gosh, what are some of the other ones? I can't think of them at the top of my head.
It's hard coming off the dome like that when
Yeah.
when the spotlight's on. You're like, oh, I can't remember. Um, that's interesting. And so, do you guys have any counselors or therapists there as well, or it's not that structured?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that we do run into with the schools. We try to advertise as much as possible that we are not counselors. We are not therapists. Um, we provide services that are therapeutic in nature, but we do not provide any kind of clinical like psychotherapy or anything like that. Um, and then I also forgot, sorry, backtracking 1 second. For some of our empowerment groups, like even the Pride group or like the boys group or the girls group, we have mentors come in from the community um, that we've already pre-screened, and then they come, and some of them have been with us for like years already. So we kind of trust them, we know them, and then they come and share their experience. So like people who have been previously incarcerated, or maybe just have really interesting like life stories or early childhood experiences, then they share with the kids what they wish they knew or what their experience was, and the kids seem really receptive to that.
I think that's a cool resource,
Yeah.
especially that community aspect of bringing in people that have gone through these things or have had these experiences, and then they can kind of share that story with the kids.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that's the most interesting aspect for them. Because maybe they see themselves in that person, or they just like seeing physical people and like those interactive experiences, more than kind of like maybe like me talking to them, for 20 or 30 minutes or however long the session is that day.
How long are the sessions? So
Um,
it's weekly, and then time frame. How long are they usually running?
yeah, so this year we're at different school sites, so it's different for each school site. Typically, we do them during their lunchtime, so the kids go get their lunch and they come to wherever we're holding the group. And some lunches are only 30 minutes, some lunches are an hour. Ideally, we would want 45 minutes to an hour, but we can split the lesson in half and just do like a 30-minute lunch. Um, but yeah, and then yeah, I don't know what else. I think I answered that question.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting concept, and especially where it comes from. A group of doctors and accountants and insurance.
Yeah, it's yeah.
You guys
See,
are kind of that mixed bag of things. It was hard getting a read on what you guys actually do because you're so diversified.
yeah, it's still tough for me, and I've been
And
there
you
for
work
two,
there,
and I've
yeah.
been there for 2 years. Yeah, it's like the great thing about the IPA is the leadership that it has, and then also the amount of creative freedom that they provide. So basically, if you have a passion or if you're really interested in something, they find a way to allow you to follow that. So I think that's pretty awesome.
And would you say most of the students taking advantage of these group sessions? Are they at-risk youth? Are they just kids curious what you guys are doing?
It really depends. I think it's a mixed bag. You know, I've seen some more at-risk youth, and I've seen kids that definitely come from, like, you know, like a middle class socioeconomic status, but they still have some of the same issues, you know? Like, you just never know what other people are going through, even, you know, depending on their appearance or what family they come from or whatever it is. So yeah.
What are some of the biggest questions that these kids are asking? Is it around identity? Is it around sexuality?
You know,
Life in
it's
general?
hard for me to say because I've only experienced, like, the male side of things, like the boys group that I've ran, um, but it would be interesting to hear what, like, the pride group experience is or, like, the girls group or the Black Student Union group, multicultural group, but I would say I think I don't know, I think a lot honestly, a lot of the kids are interested about, like, just how to, like, handle not falling into that toxic masculinity, genre or, like, stereotype.
Really?
Yeah, because we talk about it. Some of them haven't heard of it, but some of those 8th graders, high school kids, they definitely have before. And they could see it in their lives, whether it's their dad or whether it's their friend's dad or whether it's their uncle or someone, you know, standing in line at a store and just the way that they interact or behave, like, it's just interesting. I mean, they come up with questions about literally anything, but I think most of it, they just like having a safe space to, like, eat their lunch and socialize. Because sometimes it's like, there's pressures to, like, hang out with certain people at lunch because it's just free range on campus, right? So sometimes that could be stressful, not having someone to eat lunch with. That this way they all have one place to be at a certain time, and they know who's gonna be there. I kinda jump around all the time. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of when I first heard the term toxic masculinity, and I don't think it was until college.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I definitely not in middle school.
Yeah.
Maybe high school, maybe?
Yeah, the high schoolers definitely know about it, but, like, I mainly work with, like, the 8th graders. This year we're, including 6th through 8th grade, at some schools. It just depends for each site, but some of them 'em have kind of heard it, but they don't have, like, a super solid understanding, and then I kinda dive into it, give examples, you
What does
know.
that mean to you when you hear that word?
It's very open-ended, but I think about it as, um, like, the idea of, um, like, male identifying people, behaving in a way that, enforces, like, dangerous or violent tendencies through, like, either verbal or, physical violence, but, I mean, I can also see it on, like, a more shallow sense of, like, um, feeling like you have to provide for, you know, your whole family or feeling like you can't ask for help or, um, yeah, thinking that, like, yeah, you have to make the most money or it I don't know. It comes from a lot of different places, I guess.
Is that's kind of a big debate today, isn't it? Toxic masculinity thing.
Probably, I don't know. I'm not that hip to to whatever's
You're just
going on.
focused on the kids.
Yeah.
That's probably a good place to be in.
I didn't also, I forgot to mention all the places that we have our empowerment groups. So not only are they running at our, like, school-based wellness program, sites, but also there's, groups at Redwood Coast Montessori, there's the juvenile hall. That's where we like to have other, like, previously incarcerated, people come and visit and talk to the kids. And then also, the ERC, which is the Eureka Court and Community School. And then the McKinleyville Middle School, I think, is just starting up maybe in October or maybe November. So that's in the works as well. McKinleyville High, and I think that's it.
So you guys are through a number of the schools.
Yeah, but only those 4 core schools, that's where we have, like, our wellness center, where families and students can stop by for basically any kind of support they need. And then the rest of them are just empowerment groups.
And The one at Juvenile Hall, do you lead that one as well?
I don't, no, that is the program director's, partner who runs that.
That seems like that would be a challenging one.
Could be, but, I think he's known some of those kids for a while now, and he's been through that process. I don't wanna speak too much about his background, but he's been through the, incarceration system, and so I think he has a better insight of what maybe they're thinking or going through or feeling.
He can relate to those
Yeah, and they can
experiences.
sense that. So,
Yeah, that I would imagine that would at least help bring down some of the barriers. But how many of those kids are just not interested?
yeah, I've only actually sat in on, it one time, but I think they're pretty interested.
Really?
Yeah.
Interested in the sense that they want to hear these other perspectives from community people, or they just
I think
want to
they
try to turn their life around?
I it that'd be a good question for him, but, from the outside perspective, I think, they're just interested they just like getting the attention and having, something else to do because it's probably, I would assume, really repetitive, and there's probably not much variation going on, so when they have the opportunity to talk about certain topics or engage in, like, little activities that are different, and meet new people. Sometimes we will be able to like throw a little barbecue for them at the end of the year or something like that, and they really really love that. So,
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot going on in jail, I would
mm-mm.
imagine. It
Yeah, in juvenile
probably
hall.
is a little slow. Oh yeah, not jail, juvie.
But some of them do transfer, so it's yeah, that's a very tough site to navigate, I would say.
Yeah, easier to be in the schools. Say,
Yeah.
hey guys, just come in whenever, take a lunch break, we can chat.
Hmm.
Do you ever have a situation where a kid comes to you and you have to kick it up to a counselor or reach out to a
Yeah,
therapist?
so that's something is, most of our services that we provide are referral based. So we do our best to work with the student for X amount of weeks. And then if it's something that is more severe or we don't have, the knowledge to handle it, then we communicate, of course, with like the principals or the counselors, whoever it is. And then we would refer mainly to outside agencies, usually for mental health. But
That's
there's,
what I was thinking when I asked that question. It
yeah,
seems like mental health would be a factor in that.
yeah, a lot of the referrals are, I mean, it comes down to mental health, like whether they're exhibiting behavioral issues, like if it's anger or if it's like withdrawal, it usually stems back from the line of thinking they have in their mind, like the,
Does that come up a lot in the empowerment group? Mental
uh,
health and how to deal with that and what those signs look like?
yeah, I think it can come into play in many different ways. But I mean, yeah, because I mean, it depends on whatever someone brings to group that day. Like maybe they'll talk about their family dynamics. Like they'll have the opportunity because we go around in a circle and we share, and then we have a talking piece, and whoever has that talking piece gets the floor. And so maybe the theme is like whatever it is, I don't know. Then they'll share something with the group, and it'll touch on substance use, or it'll touch on their family's mental health battles, or maybe their own. And so yeah, then we can have a dialogue or a discussion about what they think that means. What are some coping strategies that other people use? Has anyone else gone through that? Like, it comes up.
So the floor is pretty open. You're really just going off what these kids need, like you said.
Yeah, what they need. I mean, of course, there's somewhat of a structure that we like to follow. Um, but I mean, if they're passionate about talking about, I don't know, like whatever it is that day, like we'll try to be, as supportive and educational in that sense as we can. Um, but it is kind of tough sometimes because it feels like you got to know a lot. You got to know a little bit about a lot sometimes. But
In
really,
regards to all of these different topics.
yeah, yeah. And we do, over the summer, we're constantly like researching or going to trainings or like trying to get updated on the newest like information about it. But yeah, it could be tough sometimes.
It's a weird time in the terms of communication. I don't feel like when I was younger, we were we had these outlets where you could go and talk to people. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing,
Mhm.
I just don't know if they were there or maybe I just didn't take note of them. But we didn't have any empowerment groups when I was younger or any groups where you could go and talk about sex or about mental health. We didn't have
Mhm.
that. I guess you had the counselor maybe when you were in high school.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
and also the counselors, like, are usually academic, right? When you
Yeah,
get to
they're
high
not.
school.
Yeah, they're not
They're like, "Let's set you up for
therapists.
success. Go to college." Yeah. Um, so yeah, it is very interesting, and I sense that this is gonna be kind of in the next coming years is gonna be the new structure of, like, schools are gonna have, like, hopefully, if there's funding for it, teams of, um, wellness teams, so to speak. Um, and so, I mean, yeah. I don't when I think back to my time, we didn't have those groups. We had, like for middle school, we had daycare after school, if you were able to go to that, and then that's just, like, basically, like, hanging out until your ride comes here to pick you up, so
Yeah, the after school program was always there.
yeah,
But
or it's,
it
like,
was just
sports.
play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or it's
You were just
sports.
playing.
Yeah.
Do you think that what do you think that stems from? Do you think kids have more problems in some way now or they're just more
Oh,
apt to be able to talk about it?
I don't know, I think they're pretty open nowadays about their mental health struggles, like, I'm noticing that's kind of a different trend.
Is that a social media thing?
Probably. I feel like at some point it was trendy to, like,
Have
have
right?
yeah,
Have some illness, have depression. I've got
yeah,
depression now. I need
like, on
to
my anxiety, yeah,
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 guys, I need to just take 5 minutes. I've got a lot going on. My
mhm,
anxiety's acting up.
but also it's, like, very real, like, so many Americans have depression, anxiety, it's, like, the most common mental health illness today, um, and those start at a really young age, probably before you can even really understand what it is. And I don't know where that comes from or why that happens, but that's just kind of my thought on it. Could be wrong, but yeah, I definitely think it is. They're more open nowadays, and yeah. What was the original question? Sorry.
Just being open about communication and talking about these problems. It seems like it's really this generation that is taking that and running with it.
Yeah, yeah, and I could see that it being social media as
Do you
like
think it's
a.
a good thing that they're that open?
I think it depends. Like I don't think anything could be good or bad, like a binary um thing, but I mean, I think it is definitely somewhat good that they're open about it because, like, you don't wanna suffer in silence, right? And, um, yeah, the more people that are open about certain topics, the more, like, just transparency there are and normalization happens, which I think is good for everyone, because then everyone can talk about it and, like, learn about other people and what works for you, maybe that works for me, things like that.
Yeah, it's a weird time. I don't know. I think it's communication is good. I didn't really believe in that when I was younger, but I think it's important. I think there's a fine line with it though, because you don't want it to become that trendy thing where now everybody just wants to say they have anxiety or depression just to be a part of that group, which I
Yeah.
think kids are susceptible to that.
And, like, they don't have to have any issues even to be part of the group. Basically, like, at the beginning of the year, I didn't explain this, we have open calls. So we put up flyers, we kinda get the word out around the school that we're having this group, then whoever shows up will kind of take note of that. We'll write their name down or sign in, whatever it is, and then we'll kind of lower the numbers down. We'll just pick randomly. Like, if 30 kids show up, we'll just pick like the first 15 or 10 or so, and then we'll meet with them, do like one of the curriculum packets with them for 10 weeks. And then we change it. So the kids who first showed up, who didn't get a chance, will be able to come in and finish out their 10 weeks, and then we do it again if there's time, and then we have, like, a end of the year celebration.
What is in the curriculum packet? Is that a
Oh,
broad overview?
it's just, like, there's different types of, curriculums, like, there's one called, like, Brothers as Allies for the boys group, and then there's one as, like, called, um, Journey of the Warrior or something like that. They come up with these, like, names, but really it's just different, basically, binders full of, lessons for each week about different topics. and that's really all it is. And then in the back of it, they have warm-ups and like icebreakers for each book.
And that's a 10-week
Um,
workbook.
yeah, 10-week workbook. Some of them are like 16 weeks, depending. Like the high school one, I think, is like 18 or so. But I can't remember off the top of my head. But also, you can go to their website and check it out. They have a description of what it is and all the different kinds of curriculum that they offer.
And is that separate from just the regular wellness group or the empowerment group? Or
Um,
that's attached to it?
what is?
That workbook process? Is
The
that tied to, like, if they come in through the lunch program,
yeah.
that's
So
what they're gonna be doing?
yeah, so the empowerment group is um basically the structure of it comes from One Circle Foundation. So we are just using their structure and their like curriculum as kind of like a guiding point, and then we offer our own group, which we call whatever we want to call it, BSU multicultural group, whatever it is, girls group, um, and then we kind of create the schedule, so to speak.
And so what is the One Circle group?
It's the One Circle Foundation. That's just their brand or their uh agency. And they sell curriculums to like either if it's schools or anyone who wants to run a group. Maybe it's like an after school program. And they have so it's not like its own group. It's like it,
Some organization.
it's just an organization. Yeah, yeah.
Are the courses that they sell, are they all, I guess, would you say, like, socially inclined? Or are
Yeah,
they
I would say so. Yeah,
okay,
it's
it's
like
not like a math course.
no, yeah, it's mainly for community building, and it's like to get you more secure in your identity and like all the good stuff of like learning about social and emotional development.
Now, what do you say to people that push back on that and say, "Well, kids shouldn't be learning about this stuff in school. This should be a home life education thing. They should learn from their parents and what their parents wanna teach them."
Yeah, I say if that's how you feel, that's okay. Like, um, they're getting their regular education, during the day, whatever the federal guidelines are or the state guidelines for education. But during lunch, it's a voluntary group. We offer it. You can opt your kid out if you don't want to do it. We send home like a consent packet in the beginning of the year, and it outlines all the services that we have. Then they can read up on all the different groups that we offer and what the empowerment groups are. So they kind of should already have a sense of like what it is.
They're not
And
getting blindsided by it.
yeah, but yeah, there's definitely been some interesting.
Have you gotten some pushback?
It just not a lot, but without diving into it too much, yeah, it's like just some parents aren't they didn't know that like their kid was maybe in like the pride group, for instance, and maybe like that kid isn't ready to talk to them about that yet. But maybe they found out through like I don't know a friend of someone or like I have
It
no
just casually came
I
up.
have no idea how, but yeah. And then so we kind of have to be like, oh, I don't. It's kind of it's an awkward situation.
How does that pan out?
It doesn't usually happen very often, but usually we kind of go about it by saying that like, the A in LGBTQIA is for allies, right? So we don't say that their child, which could be true. Like we do offer a space for allies to be part of it, even though it's mainly for the students who identify in that specific community. But we'll tell them like, well, your child is an ally and they're here to support their friend or whatever it may be. It really will talk with that kid and we'll see where they're at first. Like if they're ready to talk about that, then we'll let them talk about it with their parent or we'll talk with their parent about it. But it really we don't want to cross like the relationship with the kid I think is more the most important personally. Um so we'll
From a
follow.
social work perspective?
Yeah, we'll follow. Yeah, it's like the client. I mean, the whole community is our client, right? But in the school and the campus. But really, I mean, if, like this is their life, so I want to make sure that like we're following what they feel comfortable with. That makes sense. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. That's a hard spot to be in, right? 'Cause
And it doesn't happen very often.
yeah. Luckily, right?
Yeah,
It'd be a problem
luckily.
if it was happening all the time and you guys are like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I could see there being some hot spots there.
for sure.
If
Yeah.
especially if a parent did know and then they find out.
Exactly. And then so we try to tell the school because like last year, like I talked about in my boys group, like the effects of social media and like sex education sort of and like pornography and things like that because I felt like they were ready to talk about those things. And we send home like a notification a week or two before saying, hey, this is what we're going to talk about next week. If you don't want your kid to be part of it, then they can just opt out. But yeah, like we talk about some things that are not like you wouldn't think like, oh, I'm sending my kid today to school, and then maybe they're talking about like, I don't know, like human trafficking potentially, or like yeah, anxiety, depression, mental health, trauma, like whatever it is. It doesn't have to be that serious. Sometimes it sounds really serious, but sometimes we just have light, fun, activities too that aren't heavy. Um, like just the other day, we did like an activity of just figuring out like where people align with, like if you like Harry Potter or if you like I don't know, like Transformers or whatever, like then they'll hop onto one side and the other. Like it could be really shallow like that, or we can just like it just depends on the day, I guess, and what the curriculum want is guiding us to do.
And so you've been doing this for 2 years, you said?
I've been running group for I think about a year and a half, a year, yeah. I mean, I did it when I was an intern, but it was very like brief, and I always had someone else with me. So I would say a solid year, with the exception of this year.
Have you noticed I guess it's a little early to ask this question, but have you noticed a change in these kids regarding, I guess, you brought up pornography and the effects of social media. Like those
Mhm.
are definitely ramped up in the younger generation. All the
Yeah.
ease of access to everything. Have you noticed consequences or changes because of that?
Mm,
I guess from your own
it just,
perspective as a
I
kid?
think it depends. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when I was a kid, like those things were all happening still. A lot of the issues that we talk about have been happening for decades, but now we're just finally making space to talk about it. And we have new language specifically for it. But yeah, I would say it can be a little bit. I guess it just depends on the school site and what the climate is or like the culture is at that school. Because some schools, like, sure, I can walk the halls and I can hear them talking about certain things or calling each other certain names. And then other schools, it's more hidden. But it probably is all still, happening. They know about a lot of things, especially with like Instagram and TikTok. Like it just doesn't seem that regulated for a kid to have. Like they could see a lot of things that maybe like I don't know, their parents don't know.
When I was in middle school, we had slap ass Fridays.
I don't know what
That
that is.
that's probably a good thing. It Andy's over here dying.
He's like, "Yeah, I remember that."
It was just this thing. So middle school, how old are you in middle school? 12, 13,
Yeah, that's like 7th, 8th grade.
7th, 8th grade, yeah. It the guys would go around and slap the ass of the middle school girls. And there was
Oh,
a
okay.
select group that participated in it, but it was known throughout the school that slap ass Fridays was a thing.
Mhm.
You never heard about that? How old are you?
No.
Do you mind if I ask?
I'm 28,
28. Okay.
so yeah.
A little above me. I'm 24, so maybe
Okay.
I don't know if I don't think my generation, maybe we were the start of that. I don't know.
Who knows? I
But
mean, I think it also depends just like, yeah, what school you went to, like
shout out
who
to
y
Zane.
who you hung out with,
Very
yeah.
structured. I mean, they came down hard, I believe, but it was up for a while. And then
Mm,
I don't remember what happened. I think maybe some parents found out eventually and
probably.
school started shutting that down
Yeah,
for good reason,
totally.
obviously, but yeah, that was a thing. I mean, kids are weird,
Yeah, that's
especially
like
in middle
sexual
school.
assault, so and that was just normalized among the locker room boy talk, right? Kind
It
of,
was
in a
not
way?
even the locker room boy talk. It was just normalized across the campus.
Oh, wow.
It was that thing.
That far
Like it was
reaching.
just it was just a Friday thing.
Hmm, very interesting.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I would never, like I would imagine that the school would see that too, and then they would be like, "All right, this is like,
A problem.
yeah, this is happening. Yeah."
God, I wish I could remember. Do you remember any of that, Andy?
Yeah, I remember. I didn't go to Zane though, but I heard about it, and I went to a different school.
Oh
And
yeah.
I still know. I still know.
Did it happen at your school?
I had a school of about 100 people.
100 people. That'd be kind of awkward. Yeah. I don't. I wish I could remember more about it, because this would be a perfect time to talk about it. But from my perspective, it felt like it went on at least for a few weeks, maybe a few months
Wow.
before anybody cracked down, which is weird now that I'm analyzing it as a 24-year-old looking back.
Like it should have stopped earlier.
Especially there are aides walking around all the time. But we
Mhm.
also had, as Zane, if you went into the men's bathroom or the boys' bathroom, there would just be a lake of piss on the floor
Mm.
constantly. In one specific bathroom, it was just a lake. People would just walk in, you'd walk right inside the door, and people would just go to the bathroom on the floor.
Hmm.
So I don't really know
Savage.
how. Yeah, I'm thinking about this now. I don't know how much maybe the staff there was really on the ball. They might have had other problems they were dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to really take like a analytical lens of the last decade of like how each specific school has changed over time, whether it's like staffing or like, yeah, the culture of the school. I don't know.
Do you see that working through these different schools? Is there a different culture among the
Um,
kids?
I mean, sometimes, yeah, it definitely can be felt, but it's hard for me to pinpoint it exactly, and I definitely don't want to say anything negative, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to start shit talking on the
Yeah.
schools you work for. That might be a problem.
Exactly. But I mean, it's all just part of Humboldt County. Like, there's different cultures in Humboldt County. It starts with the parents and the families that the kids come from. And then I look at it as like the schools are a microcosm of the community, right? So, like, depending on, where you're going to school, what area of Humboldt County you're in, you're sort of going to get some type of norm going on. But I mean, within that norm, like, there's vast differences within each specific kid even. So it's hard to say what specific bad or good culture. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that
And
one.
it's hard to pinpoint in that you have that new form of connectivity where everyone can just reach out to anybody else through their phone. So
True.
culture, while it's still unique and consolidated in some aspects, it's a lot more open than I think at any other point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because of like social media and like just everyone has a smartphone.
Yeah, but imagine back in the day if your friends, you would have your friend group at school, and then the school that's, a town over. So like Eureka to Ferndale, maybe you wouldn't know that many kids in Ferndale, but
Hmm.
now everybody's on Instagram, so you
Yeah,
might
maybe you've
see
heard
them.
of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like maybe something like a big event happened, like that was kind of like the gossip of for the next month or so, and like maybe this town over, like the school of that town heard
Or
about
this
it.
even the slap house thing. Andy went
Yeah.
to a different school and it perpetuated itself down there. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. Yeah, there's like also the different trends that happen like on TikTok or Instagram and then they bring it to the school. Like I remember God, last year there was like ripping the soap dispensers off the bathroom wall. That was like a thing, I'm pretty sure.
Was it
And
really?
yeah, so
Anything that you could take off of the walls, paper towel dispensers,
So just
toilets.
trashing.
so you
just
heard it was a
trashing
thing.
the.
You've heard about it?
Yeah, there's videos. I could bring one up.
Isn't that so
just,
weird?
Just
Like
trashing the school bathroom.
yeah, anything you could pull off a wall. It was like the trendy thing to do last year, I guess, like for a certain point of time.
Did you see that at any of your schools? Kids doing that?
I've saw the aftermath. I didn't see anyone actually do it, but I've heard about it through like teachers getting frustrated or like the administration. It's just like another thing for them to do. Like they're really busy. Constantly putting out fires with like kids' behaviors or parent issues. Like
From social work aspect, is that a pretty big problem across schools just in general? The lack of the ability for really that one-on-one attention, because if you're a teacher and you've got a class of 40 kids
yeah,
5 times a day.
I would say so. But sometimes a lot of teachers do throughout the year find a way to make that connection. Um, But yeah, I would say, especially in the bigger schools, like kids can get lost. I guess that's what I'm getting at. But luckily in Humboldt County, like we are pretty rural-ish. So there's a lot of different school districts, and some of them are smaller, so it's easier to be seen and like heard. But yeah, if you think about it, like back in the day, like I don't know, Neanderthalish times, like um, we would have, I don't know, like multiple adults with like a group of kids teaching them the ways, but in a classroom there's only one, maybe two for like 30 kids. Nowadays like the class sizes are getting bigger too, which is definitely a thing. So it's probably just harder to reach,
Yeah, especially in college. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. I'm sure
Oh,
you had some
yeah.
pretty big classrooms.
Well, for Humboldt County, it's like HSU. Those class sizes are pretty small compared to like, the bigger university.
What was your biggest class?
Ugh, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably like, uh, probably like 25 to like
Oh, Jesus.
35, maybe.
Really? That's a good size.
Maybe 40,
That's
but
a good size. I had a couple that were 300-400 kids, and it's just
at HSU.
No, I went to a couple
See?
different schools.
Yeah,
out of
that's what I'm
state.
talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I went to CR and then HSU and graduated last semester. So
Oh, congratulations.
thanks. Yeah, feels like it's been a long time, honestly, since then already.
Was it so you were going to school through Zoom or not through Zoom?
Yeah, I did my
online.
whole master's project online, which was a blessing and a curse, I guess. But there's different thoughts on that. But
Yeah, I was not a big fan of the Zoom university aspect.
yeah, I feel like the learning was a little bit stifled, but I mean there were still a lot of great experiences that happened, but the convenience was the best thing. Like especially parking at HSU. If anyone's listening that's local, like the hills, the stairs, the parking is horrible. So it was nice to just be able to wake up and then be like, all right, I'm gonna log on.
Not have to go for a hike every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find a video on that soap? Because I'm still thinking about that. The TikTok challenge is the one that I always think of, and I don't know if this was a TikTok challenge, but the Tide Pod,
I
where the
vaguely
kids,
remember
yeah,
that.
kids ate Tide Pods.
Oh,
Th-
geez.
They they were the little prepackaged ones, like a little square.
I sort of heard about it, but
Yeah, I don't know if they were eating them to eat them, but they were putting them in their mouths and then popping them
like it's candy,
like
like
it's
some
candy.
sort of.
Yeah, I think they had to start locking up the Tide Pod boxes at stores because so many kids were doing that.
Hmm.
See, this is what we're talking about. Kids are wild. What do you got here, Andy?
Only a month of school and got this.
Oh, so a kid's
Yeah, they're,
pulling
like,
a
stealing it.
hand sanitizer dispenser out of his backpack.
There's hundreds of these
kids are, especially middle school kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Very impulsive.
very
Super
impulsive and just gung ho to do just about anything.
Well, that prefrontal cortex in their brain is not developed yet, so their decision making is impaired, until they're at least like 20, 25.
I think 25 is what they're saying. You gotta.
Yeah.
That's gonna pop up on the audio. I think it's 25, right? Maybe 26 now.
Yeah, I think it's 20 till fully developed brain. But like even when you're older, like you still are forming new folds in your brain. It's enlarging, like your prefrontal cortex is getting bigger. But yeah, it's a lot of it's emotion based, right? So like the limbic system's being activated and not a lot of thought.
Yeah, motion based and just trying to fit in, trying to find a friend group.
The thing that they care about the most is what other people, their peers think of them, for sure, is what I'm seeing. There's a lot of kids that are susceptible to peer pressure. And then there's the kids who know that, and then they sort of exploit it in ways, but it's hard to think of specific examples, but
it's prevalent enough where you can see that.
A
and
little
notice,
bit, yeah.
Okay, they're playing some mind games here.
yeah, whether it's like making fun of another kid or like, I don't know.
The bullying's big.
It's always been big.
Yeah, but
Always
now
been
it's
big.
in your pocket. I always come back to
Mhm.
that online bullying thing because I don't know anything about that.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And like nude pictures too. Like they're sending it. Sending
In middle
those.
school?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. Like around 8th grade, 7th grade. And like some things that you wouldn't think qualify as it, it does. Yeah, they have to be really careful. That's what I warn them about, especially once they get to high school. I think that's more of like where that takes place, but I would like to think they're kind of getting smarter about it. But yeah, I warn them about it. Like,
Some things that don't qualify, meaning
oh well, just like um, I don't know, like how much you're showing or like what you're showing specifically. And also they don't think about the fact that like when if a different parent wants to like legally get involved or something, like it can fall back on the parent because oftentimes sometimes the kids don't have their phones, so they're using their parents' phones without them knowing it. And then it's like, well, that phone's connected to this person's bill, which is this adult, so it looks like maybe
oh
they're
my
doing
god,
it.
could you imagine
Yeah,
getting a
right?
charge
Your
because
sixth grader did
your
it
son sent a dick pic to some girl
in like sixth grade.
and it's
Yeah.
on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I haven't personally heard of that happening, but I know, like in the like specifically in the schools that I've been to, but I've heard of it happening, like from other people.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, so it's just something to be aware of.
Does that hypersexualization aspect amongst kids is weird. Does that tie back into your mentioned the pornography?
Yeah, we don't. I don't know. I don't specifically talk about that. I just more talk about like the dangers of media and like where they're learning things. Because like sex education is not like a huge doesn't have a huge presence, I don't think, in like a lot of public schools. Like I think there's legally required to have it, but the quality isn't always like, I don't think there's as much regulation on the quality portion of it. So like when where they're learning these things are like in their iPhone, or like
TikTok.
or yeah, TikTok or their friends, and how much experience do those friends have? They're learning it probably from other friends that they have. So yeah, it's I try not to dive too much into it because in my groups, like I try to keep it just like, what images do you see in media? Where does it show up? What message is this, depicting about gender roles and women and just things like that.
It's a balancing act because you don't want to point the kids to it, but if
Yeah.
they know about it, you kind of want to say, "Hey, these are the challenges. This is what's to watch out for."
Mm-hmm.
Is that a hard line to walk?
Sometimes it is. You kind of got to be aware because like you don't want to have them going home and then saying like, well, this is what we talked about
I learned
today.
about pornography today
Yeah,
at school.
like
That would be a bad phone call to
right.
get.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, we do send out notifications first. But we send them home with the kids. So if the kid doesn't tell their parents or show their parents, like there always is that potential. So
Or if the parent doesn't really read it,
yeah, and they're just like,
signs
oh,
it.
whatever. Yeah.
Oh, it's a school program. Okay.
Sure. Yeah,
And
it
then
must
they-
be safe.
Yeah, and then they hear about it.
And then they're like, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know my kid was learning about this.
But it's really only just 1 week. It's only one session, long, and I try to keep it shallower. Most of the time they don't even have any, I don't think they have a lot of experience with talking about it, especially amongst other young males. Like it's a lot of things we learn, we just kind of like keep it to ourselves and learn independently, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I don't know what specific examples that would be, but
yeah, I was thinking in terms of
like, I don't know how to interact with like women or
also like dating advice,
dating
or
advice,
how to get a
yeah.
girl, tips like that.
Things like that. Yeah, like how we should act, like we kind of just learn by seeing and I don't know. I don't know if there's a huge conversation happening, with those younger boys in like a positive, healthy way. I don't know. But maybe it is. Maybe it's happening and I just don't know.
Yeah, I guess most of the time that just comes from like your dad or an older brother.
Yeah, ideally, right? But some kids grow up without, it's just like a single mother household.
Yeah,
or
if you don't have those
which can
role
still be
models.
very educational, but there's something to be said about the lived experience, and passing that down. But
Yeah, do you think that's unique to guys?
I don't know. I mean, there's I tread very lightly with like the gendered language because I know like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I would think so just because of the biological sex that we have, but a lot of, people identify in certain different ways, and they could still say, my experiences are valid and I could pass this on to, a biological male youth. Like, so it's hard for me to comment on that.
You're very careful when it comes to gender. You walk that line.
Yeah. And I'm still learning so much. Like, I make the mistake all the time of like using boy or girl, or like a lot of times I say, "Hey guys," like,
Is
to
that bad? I say that all the time.
everyone I think says it, but like sometimes those students don't identify, as guys. Maybe they're male presenting, but they don't. Maybe they don't want to be, or they're like thinking about, I don't know, being a different gender, and it's just it
Is
could.
this a self-taught line that you're trying to walk, or is this
I
in
don't know.
regards to the curriculum, or how did you pick
No,
that
it's not
up?
curriculum. I think just going through the social work program and like growing up when, I don't know, like I'm a very, I can't remember, I think a young millennial. So like maybe it's kind of normalized within our generation. I don't know. Maybe it's just the people I surround myself with. But I try to be very open minded about like anything related to like gender and, sexual orientation and race and all those things, and try not to like say anything that could be misconstrued, or because most of the time whenever people are misgendered or whatever it is by accident, but there are those times when I think people do take advantage of it and do it on purpose, and then that's when it's like a problem, I feel.
Do you ever sit in on the LGBTQ groups?
I have not sat in on one yet, but I am running one for the first time. I had my first meeting last week, and I'm gonna have my second one this Friday. So that's at the Peninsula School.
And what are you learning in that meeting?
Um, uh, I haven't learned much yet. So it was just our first meeting. So I was just building relationship. Um,
Oh, this was you teaching the meeting,
Me,
not
yeah.
oh, okay, I thought you were getting a meeting.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, we had a little schedule change, and the person who was running the Pride group, basically, we had to switch around. So now I'm going to be taking it over, and then the last Friday was our first time being with those students, and doing like a lesson plan with them, and yeah, it was just kind of like very shallow, kind of like get to know you, like what are your experiences, but it seems like they're struggling sometimes with like parents accepting, which, or maybe one parent does, one parent doesn't. Maybe they don't live, maybe they're in two different households. Like it's just, yeah, that's what I'm kind of
From a
seeing.
social perspective, what is your stance on that? Because you do have the two camps, right? There's the one where you should accept if a child comes to you and says, "Hey, this is what's going on," you should accept that and try to help them 100%. And then there's that other camp where they say, "Well, maybe you should, try to have them wait or try not to feed into it until they get older."
Yeah, I hear that a lot too with like the trans students that are at the campuses. Like
That's the big one.
their parents are like, "You don't know yet. You don't have enough life experience." And in my thought, everyone could have their own opinion on it, but my thought is that people know, from a young age, like even like sometimes 4 or 5 years old, they have some sort of idea of, how they want to identify, or like, even who they're maybe potentially attracted to. Like, I feel like it happens at a really young age. I don't know if maybe 4 or 5 is kind of young, but I think by at least by seventh, eighth grade, I think they have a stronger idea. And I think that as parents, we should make space for them to explore that. Because I mean, I personally don't see what the problem is with that just yet. But I'm not a parent quite yet. But
I think the hesitation in people stems from the idea that if you embrace that aspect when your kid is so young, and especially if you get involved with hormone blockers and
hmm
bring that
that's a
side
tough
in, yeah,
conversation.
then it gets a little more dicey because the ramifications of that, should your child change their mind, then it's a little more involved.
Yeah, like you can't turn back. But
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that, yeah, that's definitely I would refer them to probably someone who has like experience
Yeah,
with like
pass that ball
yeah, like
along.
a psychotherapist that specializes in that. That would be like a family conversation for them to have.
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm gonna
But
give you guys a number. You might want to call this.
yeah,
Take your time.
I will call that number with you and make sure that you have an appointment set up. That's how I would do it. Just so, I mean, because honestly, if that doesn't get taken care of and there is kind of that butting heads in the household for a long time, that could be a big issue. And that could really severely influence the kid's self-esteem, self-worth, depression, mental health, and it could have some really negative effects like self-harming or, God forbid, suicide. So,
Yeah, I don't envy the parents that have to have that conversation. 'Cause that is a hard, especially around the transgender ideology. I was gonna say
yeah.
it's hard. I mean, what do you do as a parent? You obviously want the best for your kids, and you want them to be happy and healthy, and that's a hard line to walk.
Yeah, some parents I feel like take it more personally. Like they have like for some reason it's affecting them more it is than the kid. Like they think like, oh, if my kid's gonna do this, it's gonna reflect on me somehow. I just get that sense. I don't know exactly why, but um and then I would love to have like some sort of parent group also. Like that's something we haven't tapped into that like I would be passionate in leading. I would love to have conversations with parents about topics like this, or whether it's race or whether it's whatever it is. And just be provide like an educational support group. Like maybe there's other parents who have LGBT kids or transgender kids and they don't know what to do. Or maybe some parents have gone through that process and then they can share their experience with other parents. I think that would be pretty powerful, but I think that's maybe down the line we're going to have to think about something like that.
It is kind of crazy that just anybody can have a kid. You don't have to know anything about kids, how to
Yeah.
deal with kids. You just have a kid.
And sometimes on accident.
Yeah, sometimes that happens a lot of times.
Yeah.
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 Well,
And-
Jett, we can wrap this up. It's already 10 o'clock for us.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We know you got to get to work. Do you want to plug again your empowerment groups, where people can find you, where they can find the Humboldt IPA?
Yeah, so you can go to the Humboldt IPA website, and then you can look under the school-based wellness program tab, and it'll have just a quick shot of our program and the different groups that we offer. But right now we have our wellness centers. If any of the parents are listening, you could stop by anytime at Sunnybrae Middle School, Pacific Union Middle School or Elementary School, South Fork and Miranda, and then Peninsula. So, and we also have an Instagram. It's School-Based Wellness Center. I think it's like just at School-Based Wellness Center. You could probably just put it into the search bar and it'll pop up.
And find it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jett, that was awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.